I think it will be triggered with the elections taking place there with Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss.
Should Liz Truss win, there will be talk about how racist Britain is. These are attacks by proxy. By creating conflict in South Africa, the communists, knowing how many awake Europeans and Americans are becoming, looking to South Africa to cause an issue, would quickly cause them to see the writing on the wall, and it would create tensions within their own countries. The same happened with America during the Haiti Revolution, which is why many claim the end of the South also took place between the War of the North and the South. They feared a similar uprising. South Africa is the new Haiti. Many times I mentioned, if some economic crisis hits Europe, we are going to see severe racial tensions pick up. When the local population cannot see doctors, get housing or get accommodation, but see that people arriving via boats who then get everything for free, resentment will set in, and if you have people going hungry, well, you have a short time on your hands before the powder keg goes off.
This is not all bad, this is good.
Europe has been drunk on diversity, which could only be done by slipping a date rape drug in their drink. While they were getting drunk on diversity, someone slipped something in their drink to topple them. They were beaten over the head about racism while they were the outright majority, but now that the scales are toppling, the poison of printing money out of thin air will come home to bite with inflation.
When these things all take place at the same time, on the eve of a major war with Russia,
nothing sobers one up and brings one back to reality than finding yourself not being able to walk in your streets without being attacked or raped or taken out because your new arrivals feel it is their right to protests.
Burn, destroy, because somehow in the new country where they were promised the milk and honey, where they have set up shop in, are now being refused their social grants they were promised.
America, I mentioned the dream vision about a clash between reds and blues.
There is more talk of civil unrest in America.
It's picking up. America internally is another powder keg which could go off.
The amount of weapons the great patriotic Americans are buying is at a rate never seen before.
More than half of the American population believe a civil war is inevitable. The visions of George Washington are coming to America. I pray for America and her citizens. Many shall join us here in the future. May God bless you, America, and your people, our distant cousins. I was thinking just today, isn't it funny that in South Africa the only people who told you to embrace a multicultural society with all its wonders were whites? They told us this while the men were fit and trained for battle. Now that the lion is old, that his claws are not so sharp, and that he has lost his teeth, now the hyenas,
jackals all want to come out to challenge the lion, but while the lion was fit,
they were all hiding and howling from the bush, screaming the whites were racist, yet they have no problem crying about racism while they implement their 116 race-based laws and destroy the country. But like I say, Europe is awaking now. The more pain, the more awakening. Most people have a morning coffee to wake up. There's a cheaper solution: just stick your finger in a plug socket or have a spider crawl up your leg.
You quickly wake up and all the gas cuts in Europe, austerity measures, all the cutbacks, the higher cost of living, the food issues will wake them up.
Germany is awake, it's awakening.
Every time I see a new shipment of weapons that Germany sends to Ukraine, the happier I get.
It should become like second nature to the Germans. They really need to get used to sending weapons like they eat their sauerkraut and enjoy their beers. There are reports now that Ukraine has lost close to or more than 200,000 men. That's about the size of the British forces in total. It's about the same amount of whites who have been murdered in South Africa and brutally attacked. But of course, if we mention this about South Africa, we are far-right racist conspiracy theorists.
Why hasn't anyone put a website together or created an online portal where we can list those who have been murdered by the ANC government? This is something that needs to be done. You cannot measure what you do not count.
We need to know the death toll during our struggle, during this nameless but very real war on our race, our culture and our people. It will be a morbid blog or website, but it is something that needs to be done. Why no one has compiled a list of the names of friends, family and fellow countrymen I do not know. Notice how the goalposts have also been changed with racism. 30 years ago you were a racist if you attacked someone of another race simply for them being that race. The new definition of racism is, if you are white, you are automatically a racist.
Just a few weeks back, I put the dream vision up about the electric tornado taking place and starting in the Limpopo province. Yesterday we saw the Minister of Health in the Limpopo, whoever she is.
I do not know or care, but her comments certainly made news in South Africa about foreigners eating away at her health budget.
I read the story. They say that 19 out of 29 people in hospitals in South Africa are illegals.
That is illegals. I wonder how many others who have come into the country, got the documents, are in those hospitals. At this rate, about 70% of all patients in hospitals are illegals.
Now how is this possible? Well, borders are open of course, but the question is, how are they in the hospital but not being arrested?
Well, simple. See, the nurses and doctors have a little side hustle in the country.
The illegals come in, they say pay me and I will treat you.
So the nurses and doctors are being paid by the state, but at the same time, they are now taking side payments, also known as bribes, kickbacks from all these illegals. So the state-run hospitals paid for by the taxpayer are acting as their private offices that they do not have to pay rent for, and they are being paid to perform the duties. It's as simple as that. An illegal walks in, the nurse being paid by the state. Operating out of a state-run clinic or hospital, all paid for by the citizens, is and at the same time being paid under the table by the illegals for their medicals. That is why they will never get rid of the illegals. They are making money from them in every way. When the state sends them back, they use your tax money to send them back and to make sure they always have money. They do not build borders.
Money sending them back, and you have an endless supply of them coming back for more, and if they cut themselves on the fence while crossing the border, no problem.
Just pay a bribe to the nurse and it all works out, but there is another aspect to this. Not all the South Africans will participate in this revolution, so in time your chief in charge with the red hat on the backdrop of all these strikes will entice them to join in. There are after all about 25 million in the country illegally, so if only 5 million of those join in, well, you have more bodies on your side. There is an old saying, never interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake. Right now, they are playing with the American eagle, big mistake. The Americans also now are going to feel the pressure, and when the pressure is on, they will look at things differently should they wish to survive, and they cannot survive with this portion of the oceans falling into Indian or Chinese hands.
So if we get back to the WION News Channel news about Orania, well, I have a few things to say about this. Most will not like it, but it's the truth.
You can look it up online to read about the history. See, in a way WION News is correct about Orania. Orania has a lot going for it, it's well run, it's got an economy, they have everything right, and I support them fully with their ambitions and goals. There is only one thing that has really always annoyed me about Orania. Orania puts more emphasis on language than race and the people. Orania seems or thinks that they can somehow protect or save a language. After all, you can only live there if you are white and speak Afrikaans. But we have to ask ourselves, what is Afrikaans and an Afrikaner? See, languages evolve. Afrikaans spoken today is not the same language it was 50 years ago, 80 years back it was not the same language. Languages are like rivers, they flow, they change, in time the language will evolve, but the people will always remain unless destroyed. The term Afrikaner was not coined when there was an Afrikaans language.
It was coined while the people still spoke Dutch.
The way Afrikaner was applied in the centuries before was an application to people who put South Africa first. They put South Africa first before the continent or country of Europe where they came from.
To be an Afrikaner in the true sense had nothing to do with language, if anyone doubts this.
Go look in the history books to Henrik Bibbo, who was the first person to use the word Afrikaner on the 6th of March 1707 when he said the words, "I will not go. I am an Afrikaner. Even if you beat me to death and even if you put me in jail, I will not stay quiet."
It has always been in our nature to be defiant, and buck the trend and status quo.
There is a monument and placard of his famous words, "Ik ben een Afrikaner." He said it in Dutch, not Afrikaans, and at that time, it was said in a way that he is an Afrikaner, just the same way someone would say they are an American or an Amerikaner. Now Orania does not allow English speakers into Orania. Why, I do not understand. Sure, I get the Boer War, but the English settlers of this country are not English despite speaking English.
Do you call Americans English for speaking English?
They speak English, but we do not refer to them as English, but somehow, for some strange reason in certain people's minds, they cannot distinguish between a people and a language. Third-generation Greeks in the country or Portuguese who can only speak English, should we refer to them as English? Do we call them English?
Do we call someone who speaks Chinese Chinese simply because they speak the language?
How many South Africans are in Asia and can now speak Mandarin or some other Asian language? Now do we refer to them as Asians or Chinese? How many English settlers married Boers or the original settlers, and due to circumstances they speak English for some or other reason?
Kurt Darren, if I remember correctly, is half British, half Afrikaans. Yet because he sings in Afrikaans he is considered Afrikaans. Well, if speaking a language makes you an Afrikaner,
then tomorrow you should accept Zulus or Indians who speak Afrikaans. Okay, but they are not white, you may say, and therein lies the trap, the problem. It's a mindset thing, and the other nations of the world fighting the West will use this as your Achilles heel, and at the same time you divide your already divided nation. I can understand it from a unity point why Orania would do this. You want people to get on, but you cannot preserve a language, it's impossible. All languages evolve, they all change.
Today this is not written in Shakespearean English. If you took the early settlers of the land and asked them to have a conversation with today's Afrikaners, they would not understand them or would battle to understand them. The point with all of this, people are going to have to choose.
Save your language or save your people. People are beyond languages, we make the languages do not make us.
See the big picture. The big picture, if you wish to survive, is that there has to be unity among those who support the larger, much wider cause and the cause. The people are beyond any language.
We are bigger than the language, because I can tell you right now. Should the seer's words be fulfilled in the future and we have thousands or hundreds of thousands of Europeans arrive here in the future with events unfolding in Europe, the language will evolve with these new arrivals. Sir, I support them for their efforts and what they have achieved in Orania fully.
I support it all. The only issue I have is splitting the people down the middle, those who speak Afrikaans and those who do not speak it.
Be careful, the enemy will take full advantage of your weakness. We are a small minority, and to be fighting over semantics and language is very small-minded. The word Afrikaner was never used in reference to a language but more of a people who chose South Africa above and beyond the European country they arrived from.
If you doubt this, read the history of Henrik Bibbo, read the words of General Hertzog. The staunch Afrikaans nationalist Eugene Terreblanche said in an interview that the British settlers, the Irish, the Scottish,
the English are Afrikaners. If you doubt it, go watch the interview with Eugene Terreblanche with Louis Theroux. All our great statesmen knew that in order to survive we have to work together. If you have no unity, the thing which you so seek to preserve will die, because you will have reduced yourself to such a small minority that you will not be able to handle the onslaught. Unity first, language and everything else second. That is my opinion of the matter based on the facts. The fact is this: the word Afrikaner had nothing to do with an Afrikaans language, because at that stage there was no Afrikaans language. The Greek, Italian, Portuguese, French, Hungarian, Polish, who all fled to South Africa decades ago, who loved the country, who put it first before their country of birth, and in the words of Henrik Bibbo are Afrikaners in the true sense. If Terreblanche was here, he would say the same thing, God bless his soul. If General Herzog was here today,